to our 18th annual Youth Black History Celebration. I am Jeanette Wheeler, chairperson of this organization. Our group is a hard-working group, and we enjoy working with our young people. As you know, this has been a difficult year for all of us, but we could not let our youth down. So we are bringing you this program virtually, and we want you to enjoy and take in all the information that these young people have to give. We work with this youth to expose them to their heritage, expose them to all of the contributions that we as people of color have given to this country. And unfortunately, it is not in our history book, but we are here. And that's why we continue to have these Youth Black History programs. We usually collaborate with the churches, sororities, and other people in the community. And with this, we expose the kids to their heritage by role-playing, singing, dancing, and a lot of other activities that they like to bring in. But it all goes back to the goal we have in mind, and that is knowing about your heritage. Now, another aspect of our program is the scholarship. We give a scholarship each year, or scholarships each year, and we also combine with the high school so that our young people can feel proud as they are walking across the stage to get their certificates of their scholarships. And you know what? We have given over $80,000 in scholarship. You know, college is expensive, so we want them to continue their education. And again, this helps us as we look at those people going on. Our vision has really been realized with these young people. We have teachers, engineers, lawyers, and many others that you're going to hear from some of them a little later in the program. But at this time, I do want you to know that you can donate to the scholarship regardless of where you're living. We need your money. And some of you know some of us. So instead of sending it to the center, you can send it to us. Just make sure you have AACS in there, because this is where we have to go through. And you will get your tax write-off. Remember, we are 501c. So these are the things that you can be a part of and show that you appreciate what is going on this. And now we're ready to take a journey. Our MC for today is Edwina Brown, who is an honor student at her high school, Palm Coast High School. She's very active in the community, active in her church, and of course active here. We're always having her to do something. So listen to that name. I think you're going to hear it again, Edwina Brown. So I would like for you to know our theme before she comes. Our theme today is strong roots. We are from Africa. We know how to survive. Amazing achievements from the outhouse to the White House. Twice a president and a vice president. And with these amazing accomplishments, we feel that our young people will continue on, and the sky is the limit. So at this time, we will begin our journey from Africa to Washington, D.C. Edwina, take us on our journey.
Thank you, Ms. Whelan, for that introduction. Now join us on this journey as we take you through your nation's capital, from Africa to America. Hotep Ankh Anju Senat. Greetings, life, prosperity, and health. I just greeted you in one of the oldest languages known to men, the Metanetra. The Metanetra was renamed hieroglyphics by the Greeks. The Greeks also renamed Kemet to Egypt. Now we want you to understand how our capital, the District of Columbia, is connected to our African roots. You will be able to see the impact and the influence that we have had on our nation and the world.
The Nabta Playa. The heavens and the African story. The African story cannot be destroyed. It was written in the heavens 10,000 years ago, prior to the beginning of the conventional history. The book was inscribed in the heavens. The position of the stars, the shape of constellations, the celestial mechanics all tell the story of the ancient African history. Nabta Playa was built to identify Sahu, constellations of Orion. As we go along, you will see the significance of the constellations of Sahu and Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. The earliest astrological site in the world is the Nubian Desert, an advanced urban community that arose approximately 10,000 years ago. Oldest known astronomical alignments of the megaliths in the world. Older than Kemet by thousands of years. The heavens and the African history. One of the most significant structures at Nabta Playa is a stone circle constructed 10,000 years ago. It marks the summer solstice, June 21st, which is associated with the onset of summer rains and the enrichment of stars in the night sky, which were used as a guide to cross the desert. In the center of the circle are 2 rows of 3 stones. Africans studied the heavens for thousands of years, identified stars, grouped them into constellations, and tracked their movements throughout the cosmos. As a result, the first solar calendar of 365 and 1/4 days was used in Kemet. 2 of the pairs aligned to form a north-south line. The other 2 pairs form an east-west line. The east-west alignment is calculated to be where the sun would have risen and set from the summer solstice 10,000 years ago. The southern row of 3 stones inside the circle represent the 3 stars of Sahu's, Orion's bow. The other 3 stones represent the shoulders and the head stars of Sahu as they appeared in the sky thousands of years ago, and marks the heretical rising of the sun of Sahu. Sahu. Sahu was the most important star to the Africans of the Nile. It was the entrance into heaven and hell. Two of the shafts of the Great Pyramid point directly to the stars in Sahu. The Africans believed that it is where their soul went when they died. Sirius rose with the sun of Kemet New Year, which forewarned the Africans of the approaching overflowing of the Nile. Temple of Dendria. Astrologers say it shows a date of about 700 BC. However, an inscription states that the temple was built according to the plans of Imhotep, which would be placed the building of the original temple at about 2650 BCE. The first ever zodiac developed in Africa. The two figures of 4 each represent the 4 cardinal points or seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. The 12 figures on the sides represent the months. The 24 hands represent the 24 hours in a day. The 36 figures on the outer ring represent the 360 days of the year and 10 days weeks. A 5-day festival commemorated at the end of the year. In the Temple of Dendera, Africans developed the 12 zodiac signs that we use today over 4,500 years ago. There are over 20 zodiacs in downtown Washington, D.C. Coincidence? You be the judge. Street layout in Kemet. Thousands of years prior to Greece and Rome, organized according to the regular plan. Laid out on a rectangular grid pattern, the houses all followed the same basic pattern and dimensions, and were evenly spaced along parallel streets. The streets were paved with stone, drainage channels built into them, leading to a central drain which allowed the disposal of dirty water from the houses. Streets were crisscrossed and laid out in a regular pattern, with houses built of lead brick, having beamed flat mud roofs, open courts, and porticos, and the earliest examples of supporting wooden column, flooded and on a raised base. The streets were designed to minimize sunlight on homes.
This is an image of the African right triangle. Plutarch, an ancient Greek scholar, acknowledged that the 3-4-5 triangle was used by Africans and taught to the Greeks. Assur, Aset, and Heru were the first African Holy Family. The upright is the equivalent to the male Assur, the base is equivalent to the female Aset, and the hypotenuse is equivalent to the child Heru. This is another image of the African right triangle. The origins of the right triangle can be traced back to 3000 BCE in ancient Kemet. The Kemetians used a special right triangle to survey land by measuring out the 3-4-5 right triangles to make right angles. Pythagoras spent 22 years studying in Africa Kemet. So the truth is, the so-called Pythagorean theorem is African. Have any of your math teachers taught you that the so-called Pythagorean theorem was taught to Pythagoras by Africans, and it was used in thousands of years prior to the Greeks being civilized? I wonder why. This is an image of Washington, D.C. and the 5 triangles. This photo shows the heart of Washington, D.C. from the air. When the city was planned, at the end of the 18th century, it was based upon the right-angled triangle. The right triangle runs from the White House down to the Capitol, from the Capitol back to a point directly below, and then back up to the White House. The triangle to the right is called the Federal Triangle of Buildings. Notice that there are 5 triangles. 5 again. The meridian part marks
corresponds to the meridian where the sun rays travel down to the 16th Street. On a certain day, when the sun rises, the sun rays travel down 16th Street to the White House. Some of the White House rooms are the color of the rainbows and sunlight: red, yellow, green, and blue rooms. Coincidence? You be the judge. Buildings and architecture in DC were modeled after Greek and Roman architecture, which was copied from African architecture. For example, 16th Street is 7 miles long, from St. John's to Eastern Avenue, which is the border for DC and Maryland. 16th Street is also known as God's Boulevard and the Spiritual Corridor. There are 53 churches, the District of Columbia, Scottish Rite, and Supreme Council 33-degree, House of Temple. This is an image of the Federal Triangle. As you can see, the Federal Triangle is a copy of the African 3-4-5 triangle. This is an image of the Jefferson Pier. The concept and design of Washington, D.C. was done before it was built. It was one of the first cities in modern times built after the design and layout were done before construction started. It clearly incorporates the African concept of alignment to stars and constellations. This small stone stands on the intended site of the Washington Monument by the designers in Washington, D.C. The ground at that location was too soft to support the Washington Monument. It marks the right angle of the triangle. The original Jefferson Pier was put in position at the instructions of Thomas Jefferson while he was in presidency between 1801 and 1809. The birth of a nation. On September 17, 1787, the Constitution of the United States was signed in Philadelphia by 38 delegates from various states of the new United States. It was at this point that the independent and free United States truly became a nation. Ancient Greece celebrated the mysteries of Demeter on September 17th. The ceremony held on September 17th in Greece for many centuries comprised a symbolic death and rebirth experience. The significance of the Constitution being signed on September 17th is obvious. It represented the death of the United States as a colony and its birth as an independent nation. It also represented the death of tyranny and the birth of liberty. This is an image of the Washington, D.C. map in 1792. A basic grid arrangement of streets running north, south, and east, west. A second wheel and spoke pattern of avenues connecting significant architectural or topographical features around the city. Notice all of the angles and circles. Notice the pyramid from the 2 avenues on the left and right of the White House and at the base of the Washington Monument. Benjamin Banneker did the alignments with certain stars, constellations, and the sun. Yes. Let's see what we can find when we take a closer look at these angles. The White House is the focal point. Why do we have consistent angles of 23.5 degrees? Let's investigate. The avenues, which converge and center on the White House, radiates outward at a significant angle of 23.5 degrees. Well, so what? Why should this angle be so important? The angle of 23.5 degrees is significant because it is the present tilt angle of the Earth's axis of rotation. The Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees from the ecliptic plane of the Sun. These angles are similar as the king and queen chambers in the Great Pyramid in Africa. Coincidence? You be the judge.
Haru, Ashar, and Set. The first Holy Family in the world were Ashar, Haru, and Set. Ashar was killed by his jealous brother Set. His body was cut up into 14 pieces, and Haru was their son. Tekhen. missing part of the star's body. Temple with two tympans. There were usually two in front of the entrances of temples. The two tympans represented the past and present. It was a reminder to all who walk between the tympans to maintain a balance between the past, present, and future. Please keep this in mind when crossing over a bridge with two lines. Your ancient ancestors have left their footprints everywhere. I pet Isto's temple. Sabbath Cyrus was admired because its appearance marked not only the beginning of the new year, but announced the annual Indian donation of the Nile, which signified renewed wealth and prosperity for Kemet, Egypt. Sabda was associated with goddess Set, Isis. The coming of Sabda, New Year festival, was celebrated after the rising of Sabda, just before the sun on June 21st. New Year was celebrated with a festival known as the coming of Sabda, Astar 13. Set only found 13 parts of Sir's body. July 4th, 1776, the sign of Cancer and the number 13. July 4th is 13 days after the summer solstice, June 21st, 1776. 13 original colonies. 13 was repeated 13 times on the Great Seal of the dollar bill. Coincidence? You be the judge. Dollar bill, star 13. The pyramid under the elevated top has 13 layers. The branch of the eagle's right claw has 13 leaves. The branch also of the eagle's right claw has 13 berries. The eagle holds in his left claw 13 arrows. The shield on the eagle's chest has 13 stripes. Above the eagle's head are 13 stars in a star shape. The words of Anubis Copensis consist of 13 letters. The words of Equibus Unum consist of 13 letters. 26, 2 times 13 letters in NDCCLXXPI plus Novus Ordo Corum at the base of the pyramid. Coincidence? You be the judge. The ellipse and the Washington Monument. December 21st is the shortest day of the year. It is known as the winter solstice. Around 11 a.m. on December 21st, the point of the shadow of the Washington Monument crosses the white path that surrounds the ellipse and enters the ellipse itself. The shadow of the monument comes close to the southern entrance of the ellipse on December 25th. After we celebrated December 25th as the birth of Peru because the days started getting longer. July 4th. The Washington Monument cornerstone was laid on July 4th, 1848. The sun was rising with Sahu, Orion. Sahu is one of the most important stars in the sky to Cometians. On July 4th, the rising of the sun and Sahu to the east of the Washington Monument are together. Coincidence? I think not. Align with the stars. The Declaration of Independence was formally signed and celebrated on July 4th, 1776. There is only one day in the year where the three stars of Orion's belt rise almost perfectly due east at the exact moment with the rising sun and Sabda overhead, the 4th of July. The Milky Way. September 15th is the only day the Milky Way stands perfectly erect and walks into DC at dawn in our era. The evening on March 25th and September 17th. The sun over the top of the Washington Monument takes place twice of the year. Standing at the center of the bottom of the West Capitol steps and looking west in the evening on September 17th, you will see the sun standing exactly on top of the Washington Monument. At that instant, the shadow of the monument will pass straight down the wall, and its point will look like an arrow at the top of the Capitol steps, pointing to its doors. September 17th is Constitution Day, and the Capitol is the architectural and practical representation of the American Constitution at work. This event happens once more each year in this location on March 25th, which is equally famous. It passed as Soap's command over 4,000 years. As you can see for yourself, the Pet Soap Karnak Temple was built over 4,000 years ago. Inside is a sacred lake with Tekumen. The Tekumen represented the African concept of the duality of nature, yin and yang. Water represents the female principle, while the Tekan represents the male principle. Washington Monument and Reflection Pool is almost an exact copy of the sacred lake and Tekans inside of the Pet Isut, the most holy of places. It represents the dual aspects of nature. The Washington Monument is 550 feet tall and 55 feet wide. It has 5 eyes. Enslaved Africans were 4/5 of the man, so 5 must represent man. African knowledge. Coincidence? You be your judge. 3 belts of Sako, Orion. The 3 belts of Sako align with the 3 pyramids on the Gaza Plateau. The ancient Africans realized and understood the concept of as above, so below. The Africans on the Nile created heaven on earth. Stars. The shafts in the Greek pyramid point to Sopdet, Sanu, and the North Stars. Sanu, collection of Orion, was the most important star to the Africans on the Nile. A shaft in the Great Pyramid points directly to the stars in Sabu. The Africans believed that that is where their soul went after they passed. Medu Nectar for Sopdet. The Medu Nectar was represented the symbols for Sobet. The Medu Nectar is one of the oldest languages in the world. It is the language of our ancestors. The word African Sobet is the oldest 5-pointed star in the world. Sobet is equated with the sacred key to unlock the mysteries of heaven, earth, and hell. The founders of America understood the importance and put 5-pointed star on the American flag, on the dollar bill, and on the Great Seal. The human body has 5 senses, 5 fingers on each hand, and 5 toes on each foot. A total of 5 senses, 5 fingers, and 5 toes for the total of 5. The 5-pointed star. Kemetans, called Sobet or Cyrus, is represented by an oak leaf, a half circle, and a 5-pointed star. This was the first time in the history of man that these symbols were used to represent the brightest and one of the most important stars in the heavens. Sobet was used for the orientation of temples and other important structures, such as the Great Pyramid. The 5-pointed star was very important in ancient Africa. The first use of the flag symbol. Africans on the Nile used the symbol of a flag to represent deity. Please observe the flag symbol under the blue arrow. The flag symbol represents divinity. It was spelled NTR. The ancient Kemetans did not use vowels. We write NTR in English with the vowels as NETER. The metanetra of Sodet. Sodet appears to have been one of opted for the American flag. The founders of America understood the importance and put a 5-pointed star on the American flag, the dollar bill, and the Great Seal. The flag symbol and the 5-pointed star are African. Coincidence? I think not. Number 5. 5 is a very important number that relates directly to human beings. Have you ever wondered why enslaved African Americans was counted as 4/5 of a vote? Our ancestors noticed that the human body consisted of a series of 5s. Remember how I said 5 senses, 5 fingers on each hand, and 5 toes on each foot? 5 parts of the body: the head, the neck, the torso, our legs, and our arms. Our pentagon. In relationship to the significance of 5 in our bodies, the pentagon has 5 points: red, white, and blue crowns. In ancient Kemet, the white crown represented by Upper Kemet, which was in the south. The red crown represented Lower Kemet, which was in the north, and the blue crown was worn for ceremonies and celebrations. The American flag. Red, white, and blue. The colors of our flag are the exact same colors of the crowns that the kings in ancient Africa wore over 4,000 years ago. Coincidence? You be the judge. Inside the Washington Monument. The photo on the left is a view of George Washington and the African Haru Bidet over his head inside the Washington Monument. The photo on the right is the African Haru Bidet in a temple in Africa. What does that African symbol mean? The Haru Bidet was placed above the entrance of every temple in Kemet. It symbolizes Haru, Sundus, and victory over all evil. It served as a reminder of the virtues of order and a warning against the dangers of lack of self-control and jealousy. Coincidence? You be the judge. Facade on the Department of Justice. The morning sunlight shines on the figures. The panel is set so that the entire relief is lighted. A shadow remains over the stick in the hand of the figure to the right. The sunlight slides slowly down the stick in his hand throughout the day. The sunlight ends on the facade where it reaches the serpent, coiled in the bottom to the right corner. The rotunda on the Capitol building. The inside of the rotunda of the Capitol building contains a painted fresco called the Apotheosis of Washington, painted in 1865 by Constantino Bermudi, who previously worked at the Vatican. The allegorical piece features 13 maidens, which represented the 13 original colonies. The group is flanked by Roman gods and goddesses, including Neptune, Mercury, and Minerva. The Greeks copied ancient African gods and goddesses and renamed them. The Romans copied the Greek gods. Constellation of Virgo. The cornerstone for the Capitol building was laid on September 18, 1793, by George Washington when the star Spica was riding over the eastern horizon. The star Spica is the brightest star in the Virgo. A number of temples in the Thebes Kemet were oriented in its setting around 3200 BCE. The Temple of Hathor in Kemet on the right was built in 3200 BCE and oriented to Spica. Sun rising between the pyramids. The 3 pyramids are the Gaza Plateau, or a sign of the Sahu constellation of Orion. Our ancestors copied what they saw in the heavens. They were master astronomers and architects. Shafts in the pyramids pointed to the Cyrus, the Sahu, and the polar stars. This was done by Africans over 4,500 years ago. Sun rising between pyramids on June 21st on the African New Year. Africans observed, tracked, and recorded the movements of the stars and the planets for thousands of years. After many years, Africans noticed patterns that repeated themselves over and over again. They first noticed the 29-day cycle of the moon. Africans noticed that the star, Sotep or Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens, would rise before the sun once a year. Planetary alignment with the Giza pyramids. It only happens once in 2,737 years. Ancient Africans were master astrologers. The occurrence of three belts of Sahu, Orion, lining up with the three pyramids on the Giza Plateau happens every 2,737 years. Think about it for a moment. Africans over 4,500 years ago had the knowledge and genius to construct three pyramids that with all of our advancements in science and mathematics, we can't build today. And people tell us we have no history. Zodiac calendar in the Hathor Temple in Denedra. The Denedra Temple is aligned to the stars and is an astrological liberal X in stone. Africans were the first to develop the zodiac. This zodiac was taken from the Temple of Denedra in Africa and put to the Louvre Museum in Paris, France. The zodiac signs we use today were influenced by the Denedra zodiac in Africa. The movement of the sun. Analemma of the sun. The sun during the summer solstice is at its highest point and at its lowest point during the winter solstice. The sun is at the same midpoint during the summer and fall equinoxes. African New Year, June 21st. The ancient Kemetic New Year was celebrated on the summer solstice, the sun's highest point in the heavens and the longest day of the year, along with the rising of the star Zodiac, which we now call Sirius, which forecast the Nile overflowing and the divine blessings on the land. The New Year's Day began at dawn when Zodiac appeared on the horizon as the shining morning star with the sun. This celebration is one of the oldest in the world and lasts 14 days. There was a direct link to the present-day celebration of July 4th back to Africa. The African 14th day New Year festival ended on July 4th. Zodiac is the brightest star in the heavens and rose with the sun once a year to foretell that the Nile was about to overflow. It would have been impossible for Africans not to make the connections. The high rising of Zodiac was called the going out of the goddesses and the gates of men. Coincidence? You be the judge. National Museum of African American History and Culture. The National African American Museum of History is a shrine. It houses our ancestors, thoughts, actions, clothes, and artifacts. The three inverted pyramids, a corona crown, is represented to spirit to manifest with the people, soul, and mind. The museum represents the birth of our consciousness. Library of Congress, Scholars Reading Room. Frederick Dahman was one of the original members of the Society of African American Artists and president of the National Academy of Design. The mosaic in the Councils of Scholars Reading Room of the Library of Congress, starting from the left, illustrates the three stages of ancient architecture. The Great Pyramid, the Parthenon of Athens, Greece, in the Roman Colosseum. It again proves and shows us that the architecture started in Africa. The fact alone can help motivate those of us who are interested in architecture. National Academy of Science Building, the Progress of Man and Science. Lee Lowry served as a consultant to the 1932 Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago. He was a member of the National Institute of Arts and Letters, the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and the National Academy of Design, as well as the Architectural League of New York. Mr. Lowry provided sculptures for some of the most prominent churches in the world. He provided the sculpture for a National Academy of Sciences building in Washington, D.C. in 1924. The mural has faded from weathering over the last 96 years. Think about this for a moment. The National Academy of Sciences is telling us that it was Africans who were the first scientists in the world. This is no coincidence. One of the most brilliant men in the world made a mural to tell that truth. It was Black men who was the world's first philosophers and scientists. Thousands went to Africa, the pyramid, to get his education and was taught by the Africans on the Nile. Ancient Africa in Washington, D.C. African Saqqara Complex columns, 4,600 years ago. The Treasury Department. The Saqqara Complex columns, 4,600 years ago. The Supreme Court. The Saqqara Complex was the first stone complex in the world. It was surrounded by a rectangle, wall over 30 feet tall, and encompasses a mile of land. These African columns were copied by the Greeks and Romans and renamed in modern times Greco-Roman architecture. All of the U.S. government buildings use African style and architecture developed by Africans over 4,600 years ago. Feel me, 4,600 years ago. There was no Greece and Rome 4,600 years ago. Seeing is believing. First, the White House, the Treasury Department, and the Supreme Court. National Museum of African American History and Culture. The alignment in Washington, D.C. point to ancient African beliefs. The buildings and architecture in D.C. were modeled after Greek and Roman architecture, which was copied from African architecture. They are the product of intelligence and reason and show an understanding of science, astronomy, geometry, and mathematics. Washington, D.C. is a very special place. It was conceived, constructed, and built using ancient African knowledge. The Washington Monument is a copy of a 6,000-year-old structure that honored the founding father and the first king of Kemet. The Washington Monument is the most prominent monument in Washington, D.C. The ancient Africans named it a Tekken. This ancient African symbol is the most visible monument in Washington, D.C. It is 555 feet tall and 55 feet wide at the base. Fives again. The people of Kemet loved knowledge. They were the first people in the world to develop centers of education, agriculture, astronomy, mathematics, and architecture. The Kemetians also created systems of government, taxes, laws, and religion that have influenced us to this day. Our history is truly amazing, and all of us should be very proud of our ancestors and what they left for us and the world. Looking at developments by our ancestors of ancient Africa, we can see influences on the establishment of our nation's capital. Today's journey through history leads us to focus on the Black experience in the United States of America. But first, please join in wherever you are with our video presentation of our national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the glistening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
What our people have achieved in America is extraordinary. By examining their accomplishments, we acknowledge their contributions. We honor them, and we are encouraged by them as we pursue our hopes and plans. We can be proud of our ethnic heritage. So, today, we have conveyed a distinguished group of young emerging historians to discuss some of the accomplishments, motivations, and even disappointments. We will begin with historian Najee Monroe.
Let me tell you about the story. Start with what my history looks like. As you've seen, my history can build up in blood, sweat, and many, many tears. As you see, my history go all the way back to the dawn of ages. That the blood that is in my veins is that of an original man. My history contains stories of riches and poverty, tragedies and triumph, struggles but accomplishments, building and destruction, love and hatred, hope and despair, but hope alive, live in hope, breathe in hope, hope in our actions. My history shows so many models of hope, active from antiquities to the nation's capital. I think of Washington, D.C. as our ancestors' permanent reminders of who we are and who we must be. They gave rise to Benjamin Banneker. Their ideas was etched indelibly into his DNA. Born in 1731, a self-taught farmer and a self-taught astronomer. Don't forget about a self-taught surveyor who uses profound knowledge for mathematics along with the laws of nature, as well as intellectual capacity to build the nation's capital of United States of America. We honor Mr. Banneker and we honor his contemporaries who, guided by our ancestors' struggle in the mud and element, they sacrificially built the White House. Brick by brick, room by room, they meticulously built a house to see the power that their children will not occupy for over 200 years. But with the election of Barack Hussein Obama of African descent and his wife Michelle, a child of African slave will finally live in a house that their ancestors built.
Since we're talking about what Black history looks like, let me tell you this. My history shows a vivid tapestry of thriving all-Black towns throughout the United States, each one a shining example of her capacity and propensity to build. Each one provided ancestral examples of unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, and faith. Each one an example and roadmap for living. From coast to coast, our ancestors established over 90 self-sustained towns. Their hearts, their thoughts of their children's safety, and their future as they created self-contained countries including schools, churches, culture enrichment places, and banks. These towns were havens of safety of our peoples. They were places of promise to African Americans. While life was hard for my people, there were those who did not want to see former slaves nor their children progress in their independence and successful with equal rights. They were determined to destroy us and maintain white supremacy at all costs, and the ugly head of Jim Crow laws ruled across the land, particularly in the South. Land ownership, illegal. Voting rights, deny. Education, deny. Economic investment, no, deny. Life in pursuit of happiness, absolutely not for Black people. Indeed, life itself was denied to thousands upon thousands of our people, massacred. Those towns were destroyed, leaving behind broken dreams, broken bodies, mounds of rubble. A couple still remain, like Edenville, Florida, Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and Langston, Oklahoma. Right now, we recognize each of our ancestors for their vision, their sacrifice of untold proportions to create safe places for our children to thrive and to see our trajectory in a progress direction in the United States of America. Their history told them, like a phoenix, their legacy would rise. I am historian Sheldon Headley, and for me, Black history looks like many ladders. On those ladders are many wrongs, generation after generation of my ancestors. I see Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived, and by today's standards, his wealth will be in the billions of dollars. I see King Alfonso of the Congo, who pushed back against the transatlantic slave trade. I see Queen Hatshepsut, who ruled as a king and succeeded at many enormous achievements, including architectural wonders of ancient Egypt. Her story should be inspiring. The wrongs of our architectural ladder include the 13 million African slaves, who survived 400 years of the cruelest and debilitating conditions known to man. The transatlantic slave trade. My people survived the Middle Passage to survive 246 years of chattel slavery, and we honor their sacrifices for survival. Because of them, we can thrive.
I am historian Demetrius Headley, and I want you to know that our history shows people of super intelligence, unmatched physical abilities, and of course those of courage, like Thomas Mundus Peterson of New Jersey, the first African American voter after the passage of the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. He was given the Medal of Honor and the school was named after him. As we look throughout the generations of African Americans, there are people who made gigantic discoveries and inventions and even served as trailblazers in their respective fields. I see Katherine Johnson, brilliant mathematician who is now known for calculating trajectories for NASA missions, but she was not allowed to use the nearest restroom because of the color of her skin. I see Dr. Percy Julian, now recognized as a chemist who made certain pills like cortisone and even birth control pills and steroids. He was not allowed to attend the closest high school in his town of Birmingham, Alabama, because he was black. But he ultimately earned a doctorate in the Phi Beta Kappa honors at the University of Vienna in 1931. But they wouldn't let him teach there because he was black. And I will also like to add Tyler Perry onto the ladder of trailblazers. He grew up in poverty, but with determination and hard work, use of his abilities, he was creative and owns now a massive entertainment empire. He is now worth billions of dollars. We can go on and on about different black people, such as athletes, scholars, humanitarians, who are intricately woven into our history. They are on that ladder, but also on our historical ladder are those brave, committed individuals and families, even in communities, who press forward and achieve creative ideas to help shape our community.
Hold up, I'm historian Niaje, and there's someone else that should be on the ladder. His name is Dr. George R. Corrales. Look, when he was my age, which is 10, he developed his first telescope. He made it from a cardboard tube and glass lens. He went on to become an astrophysicist and a nuclear engineer, and he did a lot to advance our knowledge of science. Dr. Corrales designed an extra special telescope that was sent to the moon as part of NASA's Apollo 16. For the first time, scientists could now see the entire Earth's atmosphere, and images could be recorded on film too. My research shows that Dr. Corellis worked hard and used his imagination, and it would take too long for me to tell you about all the important things that he did. But let me say this. He is in the National Hall of Fame, and in 2013, President Barack Obama invited him to the White House and gave him the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. Dr. Carruthers died on December 26, 2020. But you know what? His amazing achievements inspired me to work hard and become the best that I can be.
Go ahead, ask me. You can ask me what Black history sounds like. It's like rushing waters. It's like swooshing sounds of winds, the sounds of original ancestors, with intelligence, with wisdom, with love, and everything you need to create, build, and pass on generation after generation. Create, build, and pass on.
It's the sound and the rhythm of the drum, a steady beat announcing a constant march that goes through the ages toward freedom. Reach back for your history. Remember your history. With great pride, appreciate your history. I am historian Daniel E. Sanderson, and I said that. My Black history sounds like the vocals of Billie Holiday telling a strange fruit.
Southern trees.
Hanging from trees, brutally murdered for trying to be free. Or even the wail of Louis Pops Armstrong trumpet. Still seeing a wonderful world and asking us to see it too.
Yeah, my Black history sounds like grief and sorrow. Telling stories of stony roads and whipping rods. Yet, sounds of inspiration, hope, assuring that we shall overcome. While at the same time, leading this nation to find democracy. Listen, do you hear that?
But I'm not broken. Wonder, but time will heal. Heavy the load, the cross I bear. Lonely the road I trod. I dare, shaken, but here I stand, weary, still I press on. Long are the nights that tears I cried. Dark sun in the sky, yet still I rise, never to give up, never to give in against all odds, yet still I rise high above the clouds. At times I feel low, yet still I rise. Sometimes I tremble, but not in despair, struggling I make my way through trials, they come to make me strong. I must endure, I must hold on. Yet still I rise, never to give up, never to give in against all odds, yet still I rise high above the clouds. At times I feel low, yet still I rise.
Today we have looked at some key influences from our earliest roots in Africa. We've considered our amazing accomplishments in this country. Now, what does our future look like? Incredible, I'd say. But let's see what past participants in the African American Cultural Society of Palm Coast Youth Black History Program would say. Look, let's see where our participants are, where they've been, and what some of them have to say.
So thank you all for allowing me to be here, I guess virtually. We are in a new age with the pandemic, and so I'm glad that even with that, we're continuing on the great things that you all do at AACS, and I'm glad I can be a part of it. You'll notice that the names are going to come up at the bottom of your screen of past participants, and there'll be a continual scrolling throughout the presentation, so I hope you all enjoy. For me, one thing that I would like to address, I guess, is individual collective history and what I would like it to show. And I mean, I guess for me, it comes down to making a difference. And I think that looks different depending on where you are in life. And I think it's about using the skills that you've been given and how you can best serve yourself, the community, and those around you. For me, I hope that, you know, my gift, I think that my gift is communication and getting points across to people. And I like to use that to uplift the voices of those that might not be able to do that. So when I look back on my legacy and what I left on this world, I hope that it shows that I continue to raise my voice for those that are underrepresented in certain places, whether that be in a courtroom, whether that be just speaking up for people in certain organizations that I'm a part of, or even if it's just something as small as, you know, thinking about someone that may not have some of the privileges that I do, and making sure that they are heard, that their needs and wants are understood by, I think, those in power, and continuing to fight for change. And I think we've noticed over these past 10 years or so that we've got a long way to go. While we've come very far, there's still much more that needs to be done. And so for myself, I hope that I can continue to use my voice, my communication skills, and the things that I've learned throughout my career in order to help those that are underrepresented. So thank you.
Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest boxers to ever live. Ali was a charismatic man who never showed weakness to those around him. Ali wasn't afraid of anything, and he never turned down a fight, even if his body wasn't in the condition to do so. Ali has inspired me to work the hardest in everything I do, because settling for average in this country won't accomplish you anything. As a black man in America, you have to work your hardest in school, work, and all of your goals. As Ali always said, don't count the days, but make the days count.
Hello, my name is Kadron Abbott, and I am currently working from home in San Antonio, Texas, as a software engineer for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And my question today is, since your time as a Youth Black History Program participant at AACS, what cultural values have become more meaningful to you? A cultural value that has really stuck with me is understanding your impact. I've been able to portray some amazing people throughout history, like Arthur Ashe and Barack Obama, and it's really helped me to understand that one person can make such a difference, and that no matter how big or small things may seem, that the decisions that I make and the things that I do have a real impact on the lives of those around me and my own life as well. And so as I've gone through life, especially since, participating in the Youth Black History Program, I've really been able to see how the decisions I make and the things that I do can really have a positive impact on others, and that I should always do what I can to help make this world a better place.
I had the opportunity of working alongside another Black intern. One day, there was a power outage that maybe lasted for like a minute, but as soon as the power turned back on, I immediately turned to her and said, "Whew, thank God for Lewis." He turned to me and said, "Well, who is Lewis?" And I said, Lewis Latimer. He created the thing, that little carbon lining within the bulb. That's why it's working the way it is now. He told me that growing up in Texas, she really didn't learn a lot about her Black history, but only the history that she was taught in school. And we all know the history taught in school is maybe 20% of the real history that has happened over time. I was shocked because I thought growing up everybody had an African American culture society. We talked about different inventors, different activists.
I even taught her about the church programs, the mentoring programs, and the African American Cultural Society, where during my involvement, they really embedded what I viewed as the basic standards and values of Black history. I even went into the different scholarships that got me here, specifically from people within our history that have made impact. The Thurgood Marshall Foundation, the Madeline Price Scholarship. She was a great educator. If it wasn't for people like them that sacrificed for me, I wouldn't be here now. Ultimately, I encouraged her to take time to learn more about her history because it always repeats itself. So let's just say she learned a lot that day.
We will end the 2021 Youth Reality Program by speaking to you in the oldest language known to man. Our ancestors called it the Metanetra, or words of nature. Hotep, Ujet, Sinet. It is said, greetings, life, prosperity, and health. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Joseph Matthews, and I'm the president of the African American Cultural Society. And I hope that you enjoy this presentation by our Black Youth Reality Committee and all of our students. What they attempted to do was to honor our ancestors, to pass on that we as Black people, our ancestors, have given us a charge that we are resilient, that we are compassionate, that we are much about our history and how to move our culture and our whole existence forward. This pandemic and the Black Lives Movement has meant a lot to move us and society forward. In 2020 and 2021, we are at a stage of our existence that we have to get together as people and not be divided by the rhetoric of the far right. We are a people and we're here to stay. And we want you to know that we will do everything that we can to make sure that our heritage is kept alive and forward to you and our youngsters that are following us. So again, I hope that you were able to receive what we tried as a committee and an organization to put forward during this Black History Month. We also honored our previous scholarship recipients, and they have moved on and have made some great contributions to our society. So this program, I hope, exemplified what we were trying to portray as a history of Black people. Enjoy yourselves, and again, thank you.